People of AskReddit. What revenge of yours hit the victim way worse than you thought it would, to the point you said maybe I shouldn't have done that? My sister used to kick my ass on the regular. She had mad anger problems and would go berserk over the littlest things. One time I turned the light on while she was trying to sleep. She beat me up and I ended up going to prom with bruises all over me. All through the years, I never hit her back. I was a super sensitive kid, and if I ever hit back, I ended up crying to my mom about how I loved my sister and hated to hurt her. After I graduated, she had calmed down a bit, but she still had issues. Coming back from a small party one night and she is back on her old bullshit, just getting mad over something stupid and going totally crazy over it. We get home and get out of the car and say I'm driving home. She keeps saying I'm too drunk even though I'd only had 2 to 3 mini beers. She grabs the back of my shirt and I'm so pissed off at her, I turn around really fast with my fist out to hit her arm or something. She immediately lets out a blood-piercing scream and drops to the ground. Blood is spurting everywhere. She leaves a trail as she runs inside and wakes up our mom and dad. Turns out, I broke her nose pretty fucking bad, but my mom and dad kept saying it couldn't be that bad because I had done it and that she must have really been fucking with me for me to have done something like that after all these years of her beating on me. I felt so awful, I cried and tried to say sorry, but she ended up going to the hospital. I don't feel so bad now because she purposely never paid the bill, thinking she could bully me into paying it, and she never lets it go. She always says I'm the reason her credit and stuff is bad and that she still has collections agencies calling her over the ER bill. I ain't paying that shit. Consider it payment for the years of abuse. Had a roommate who basically let his new girlfriend move into our house in college. She helped herself to everything in the house but never contributed. Finally she parked in my parking spot and that was my breaking point. I let all the air out of all of her tires, thinking she'd just air them back up and it would be an inconvenience. Instead she ended up buying all new tires. Whoops. Never came clean about it. 9th grade honors English class. The teacher didn't like me. Only teacher I ever had that didn't like me. Others would get frustrated with how my lack of effort at times, but still like me as a person. She just flat out didn't like me. One of the reasons was that she didn't like athletes because they would miss her class regularly for travel games. And I played 3 sports, so I was missing a good bit. Now, I was also missing for academic stuff like math/science competitions and quiz bowl tournaments, but she was particularly bothered about missing for sports. Case in point, she would intentionally double the amount of homework due the day after long away games knowing that the players wouldn't have the time to finish it all. And shocker, she didn't check homework every single day, but always checked after away games. I've written about her before, but she also would give me 70s and low 80s on papers without any red marks on them, but people around me would have red marks all over their paper and would have 90s. After one particularly low grade on an assignment that I knew I had actually done really well on, I inquired about it. Her exact response was that I was only doing 70% of my ultimate capability and the others were doing 90% of theirs. So I specifically asked, does that mean my paper can be better than someone else's but be 20+ points lower? And she said yes. And to show this wasn't just me misunderstanding things, she recommended me for an advanced writing class a year earlier than students were supposed to be able to take it. So if those 2 things weren't bad enough, she gave us an opportunity for extra credit toward the end of the year. We had to go to a local college's rendition of Antigone, write a 2,500 word paper on it and tie it into what we discussed in class on the play, and also turn in our ticket and play bill. It was due on a Monday and the play was only going on Friday to Sunday, so there was no way to turn it in ahead of time. But I was going to miss class that Monday all day for an academic competition, representing the school. And it was the biggest one of the year, like had to place top 10 in a previous competition to qualify. So it's obviously an excused absence. I told her for an entire week prior to the play that I was going to miss on Monday, and she told me multiple times to turn it in first thing Tuesday morning. So I go to the play, write the paper, go to the academic competition Monday and place first in one category and second in another, and then Tuesday morning before basketball workouts at 7 a.m. I go to her room to turn in the assignment. She refuses to take it because it's late, and she didn't recall ever suggesting that I could turn it in on Tuesday. She told me 4 times. Her reasoning: 1. Another student that missed for the competition was able to turn it in. But that student lived across the street from the school. I lived 20 minutes away and couldn't drive. 2. My mom was a teacher at the school, so I could have just sent it with her. Except I had been told to turn it in Tuesday, so there was no reason for me to think to have my mom turn in my assignment for me, plus she has her own students and classes to worry about. 3. I could have done the work Monday evening, which wouldn't be fair to the other students. So I went into the metadata for the paper that showed the last time it had been saved was Saturday afternoon. She still refused to grant me any credit for it. So I was out the $25 for the ticket, the time that it took, Plus it really inconvenienced my mom, who had to pick me up Friday from practice, rush me home to shower and change, then rush me back downtown for the play, and then come pick me up again 2 hours later. So my mom was pretty pissed about it, too. This teacher also prided herself on the fact that nobody had ever made an A on her final exam. She thought she was the toughest teacher ever. Really, she just loaded students up with a bunch of busy work. So the last day of class, she gave a few minutes at the end of class and asked, "What's your biggest wish?" to the class as a whole. I piped up, "I wish for an A on the exam," and she laughed and said, "Yay, and I wish for $1 million and not to have to deal with you anymore." So, all of that sets up the final exam. It's 100 questions and then a 5-point bonus question that asks those generic "what was your favorite part of the class? What did you learn?" etc. We got 2 hours to take the exam, and students that finished early had to wait until 1 hour was up, so that there was just 1 point of people getting up and leaving rather than being distracting throughout. So I finished the 100 questions in about 20 minutes. So I spent the remaining part of the hour just blasting her in the bonus question. I said that I'm not sure I learned anything and pointed to her never making any comments on how to improve my writing. I said my favorite part of the class was it finally being over and not having to deal with her shit anymore, and brought up a number of other little things that happened on top of that mentioned above. And I said that she was by far the worst teacher I had ever had, and that the school is worse off with her teaching the entire 9th grade. The bell rings for the hour, and I'm the only person of the entire 110 students to leave at the hour mark. Now, on exam days, the teacher doesn't proctor their own exams so that they are available to answer questions, or if the classes are split among different rooms. So I have to wait for my mom to finish proctoring a different exam, so I'm just sitting out in Breezeway. The teacher finds me, holding my exam, with tears in her eyes, and tells me to meet her in the principal's office. She then storms off, so I head over. As I'm waiting there, I recount what happened to the soccer coach, who is sitting there cause he made some comment about "surprised to see you sent in here." Eventually she comes back in with my mom, who she pulled out of proctoring an exam, and we all go in to see the principal. She's crying, screaming, literally choking every minute or so. After about 45 minutes of me spilling everything I'd gone through that year, all things I'd already vented to my mom about plenty of times, the principal finally looks at her and goes, "How much was the question worth?" She said 5 bonus points, and he says, "Then just don't give him the bonus points." So I made a 98 on the final instead of a 103. Missed 2 questions. Every other student got the bonus points, and the next highest grade was an 81. Thinking she would get the last laugh, I noticed a few days before grades were due that one of my assignments from the second week of class all the way back in August had been dropped 10 points. My final grade ended up being a 94.4, which was a B at the time. But I couldn't prove that she had altered my grade. I just had them all in a spreadsheet to determine my grade ahead of time. Should have been a 95.2, but nothing that would prove anything. Since I could have just typed it wrong, I didn't. The summer after, the school decided to change to a 10-point scale, and so 90 plus was an A, so my B became an A. She also had to have her homework assignments each week signed off by the department chair, and she had to start accepting assignments via email. 2 years later she was fired after other students started having real issues with her. Prior to me, the administration just thought it was a case of students complaining about the hard teacher. Still think she deserved every bit of it, but I certainly didn't think it would set in motion her getting fired. I had a girlfriend cheat on me, lie about it when I confronted her and gave her the chance to come clean and work through it, and stalk me after I broke up with her. We were quite young, 17, so it was all very overdramatic, but I did love her a lot and was hurt by what she did. At the same time, I was very done and not interested in reconciling. She didn't get the hint. I asked her nicely many times, then not so nicely, then demanded she fuck off. She would, for a while, but then she'd show up drunk and try and pick fights, insult me, and be sincerely hurtful. I eventually had enough, as you do. I told a couple of choice people in her school, different to mine, what she'd done, with gory details. She'd sucked off her ex in a shitty car. Thought she'd get dragged for it and that would be that. Well, turns out she was a bitch in all other aspects of her life, too. Apparently she was loathed at school, and people jumped on this news like starving beasts on fresh meat. I had texts and IMs from people I didn't even know asking to confirm the news, which I ignored because I was really done with the whole situation by now. I eventually heard from other friends at that school that people had not let it drop, and had even stuck posters around the school with pictures of her, announcing what she'd done, offering her services with her phone number, photoshopping bananas into her mouth, etc. It was brutal, and she had to change schools in her final year. I did feel a bit bad. If I'd known it would go that far, I might have rethought telling those people. At the same time, she hurt me badly. She refused to leave me alone despite months of chances, and the other students reacted so viciously because apparently she was a total asshole to everyone in the school. So, I don't know. I sure as hell didn't expect that and how it ended. Had a big group of friends from 13 to 18. When we were 17, one of them stole my girlfriend. To be fair, he legitimately knew we were going out. He got her drunk, and shagged her at a party. He knew I'd find out. Said to my face he didn't care. Tough shit, mate. It was her fault as well, of course. She wasn't passed out or anything like that. She'd been leading him on, and was sober enough to consent, if drunk enough to get over the social stigma of actually doing it. So from that point on, our group of friends just cut this guy out of our circle. We stopped inviting him to stuff. If he tried to hang out, we told him to piss off. Mates that had been friends with him since primary school just ignored him. Initially, I was super proud of this show of solidarity from my brothers. My best mate was actually dating my now ex-girlfriend's best mate, and he split up with her because of her attitude about the whole thing, trying to defend her friend to him, and make him hang out with them as a foursome. So, first summer back from uni, we're all 19 to 20. We see him in a local pub. I don't know what to do, decide to try and be cool about it, and go up to say hi. He tells me to fuck off. I guess he blames me for all his friends cutting him out of his life. I don't get the chance to explain that I in no way asked them to do that, they just did what they saw as the right thing. 2 weeks later, we're in the same pub, and I see his younger sister. She's 17 now, very, very attractive. I start a conversation with her about her brother, and how I feel bad about what we did. She says that it did really hurt him, but he's got some new friends now, mostly from uni, and is still with my ex, despite a long-distance relationship over the uni semesters. He won't talk to any of us old friends though, which I think is a genuine shame. He's known some of the guys since we were 5. One drink leads to another with this girl, and we end up back at her house. Her parents are away, her brother is staying at my ex's flat, she has her own flat, didn't go to uni, got a job instead, so empty house. We end up shagging. Next morning, her bro calls round just as I'm leaving. The look on his face as he works out what's happened. He goes from utter despair to absolutely mental in about half a second. Eventually I just had to leave. His sister finally managed to explain to him that it was nothing to do with revenge or anything, and that I was genuinely sorry for how we treated him. I don't know if she told him the whole conversation we had about how I'd feel bad as I didn't want to upset him anymore, and she convinced me to come back to hers by saying she was her own woman, could make her own decisions, and he wasn't due to be home at any time. If he hadn't have randomly turned up, I hope he'd have never known. People of AskReddit. What revenge of yours hit the victim way worse than you thought it would, to the point you said maybe I shouldn't have done that?